Once upon a time, in a big, bustling city, lived two very special puppies named Bop and Pop. What made them so special? Well, for one, their fur was the color of bright, juicy oranges, like two little suns walking around. And second, they could stand up and walk on their two back legs, just like you and me. Bop and Pop didn't have a mom or a dad, and they didn't have a house. They were very, very poor. Every night they would find a quiet spot behind an old, forgotten building to sleep. They had only one tiny blanket to share, which they would pull up to their chins, wiggling close to keep each other warm. Some days their tummies would rumble and grumble with hunger, but no matter what, they always had each other. If Bob felt a little bit sad, Pop would tell him a joke, something like, "Why did the teddy bear say no to dessert?" "Because she was stuffed." Bob would giggle, and just like that the sadness would float away. And if Pop scraped his paw, Bob would find a soft leaf to clean it and give him a gentle hug. They were the best of friends. One sunny afternoon, as they sat watching people hurry by, Bob turned to Pop and said with a serious face, "Pop, we need coins," who was busy trying to balance a pebble on his nose, nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, Bob. Coins can buy yummy food, and maybe even a bigger blanket." Just then, they overheard two men talking about a big mine far, far away in the rolling hills. "The mine needs workers," one man said. "The work is very hard, but they pay good money." Bob and Pop looked at each other. Their eyes lit up. This was their chance. "Let's go," they said at the same time. So the two little puppies packed their things, which was nothing, because they had nothing, and began their long journey to the mine. They walked for days and days. They walked through tall, green forests where squirrels chattered at them from the branches. They walked across wide, sparkling rivers, splashing their paws in the cool water. At night, they'd look up at the stars and tell stories about what they would buy with their coins. "I'll buy a mountain of biscuits," Pop would say, "and I'll buy a squeaky toy for every day of the week." Pop would add. Finally, they saw it, the great grumbling mine. It was a giant hole in the side of a mountain, dark and a little bit scary. The air was filled with loud noises, clangs, bangs, and the rumble of heavy carts rolling on tracks. Rocks would sometimes tumble down from the ceiling, and the dust made them sneeze. The work was even harder than they had imagined. Their first job was to carry rocks from deep inside the mine. Some of the rocks were bigger than their heads. Their little paws started to hurt, and their orange fur got covered in dirt and dust. But did Bop and Pop give up? No, sir, they worked with all their might. Bop would grunt, "Heave!" and Pop would shout, "Ho!" as they lifted the heavy stones together. To make the work feel less hard, they made up silly songs. They sang about grumpy gophers and dancing dust bunnies. Soon, the other workers, who were mostly big, tough badgers and bears, would stop and listen. A smile would creep onto their faces. "Look at those two little orange puppies," they'd say to each other. They never stopped smiling. They never quit. Watching everything from a high ledge was the mine owner, a tall old bear with round glasses perched on his nose. He saw everything. He saw Pop help Pop up when he tripped over a loose rail. He saw Pop share his small piece of lunch bread with Bop when Bop's chest tummy rumbled extra loud. He saw them giving each other high fives with their dusty paws at the end of a long day. And most of all, he saw that they smiled, even when they were so tired they could barely stand. One day, the old bear called them over. His voice was deep and rumbly, like the mine itself. "You two," he said, "Bop and Pop, why do you work so hard?" Bop stood up tall and said, "Because we need coins to buy food, sir." Pop puffed out his chest and added, "And because we like trying our best. It's an adventure." The old bear blinked behind his glasses. Then, a slow, warm smile spread across his face. The very next morning, something different happened. Instead of being told to go down into the dark mine, Bop and Pop were led to a special mine cart. "Hop in," said a friendly badger. The cart didn't go down. It went up, up the side of the hill, clicking and clacking all the way. At the very top, the cart stopped. In front of them was the most beautiful house they had ever seen. It had a bright red roof, big sunny windows, and a huge green yard perfect for running and playing. The old bear was waiting for them on the porch. He smiled. "This house is yours," he said kindly, "in return for all your hard work and your happy hearts." "No more mines for you." Bop and Pop's jaws dropped. They ran inside. There were two soft beds with fluffy pillows. There were bowls already filled with delicious puppy food. And toys. There were bouncy balls, squeaky squirrels, and ropes for tug-of-war everywhere. Bop took a running leap and jumped onto a bed. B-O-ing! It was the softest thing he had ever felt. Pop found the shiny wooden floor and slid from one end of the room to the other, his tail wagging like a helicopter. They laughed and laughed, their happy sounds filling the wonderful new house. That night, for the very first time in their lives, the two little orange puppies slept in warm, cozy beds. There was no cold wind, no rumbly tummies, and no heavy rocks. There was just Bop and Pop, together, and finally, happy at home.